All right. And what it says, we are live here once again for another Thursday night night gallery here, man. Guys, it took me a little longer to get here. I just thought that one of my heroes as a kid throughout my life has just passed away. Ace Frehley of Kiss, one of the original four members. It took me a little longer to get myself together, but I am here, and we are doing let me see, it's episode it's season 2, episode 6, and season 2, episode 14. The devil is not mocked in a question of fear, and then the other one is yes, different ones. Tell David and Lagoda's heads. These are all really good. A question of fear, of course, has got Leslie Nielsen, which is most people know him as like this comedy guy. But before that, this is the time before he ever did that, because he first did that in Airplane. So yeah. Let me see here. All right. But yeah, man. Let me see. Be start as Leslie Nielsen over there. Is anybody else really well known in A Question of Fear? Do you remember?
In the story, Question of Fear comes first, and then The Devil is Mocked is the second one.
Right. Is Leslie Nielsen the only one that's famous in this? What's still well known in that one, or is there somebody else? Who's the guy that plays the guy that hires him to stay in the house?
Oh, that's Fritz Weaver.
Okay.
Very good character actor. He worked with Rod Serling before. He appeared in 2 Twilight Zone episodes, and then later on in the '80s, he appeared in the Tales from the Dark Side episode "Monster in the Closet."
Okay. Yeah, Drake. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us. I'm not sure if you ever seen these episodes or not, but we're gonna kick some ass with this here. Yeah, like 10 minutes before I was gonna go live, I found out about that. So that bummed me the fuck out immediately. So look, I'm sporting Ace tonight, so this is in. Rest in peace. Born April 23rd, 1951 to, of course, today, 15th, 16th of October 2025. He was 74. But yeah, man. And this one here, the devil is not mocked. It has a few people in it. So people you probably know better than me, because I don't know those older ones that weren't in horror as well as you do. But I do recognize them. I just don't know my name and everything. So you'll probably be able to tell me who it is that I'm doing in The Devil is Not Mocked. But if you want to go ahead and start on yours, A Question of Fear, which is an excellent episode, you go ahead, man.
Okay. Well, sure. I'll start this one off. This is called The Question of Fear. It was the original air date was October 27th, 1971, and it stars one of my all-time favorites, Leslie Nielsen, who at this time was a serious dramatic actor. This is before he became a comedy legend. And then also very good character actor Fritz Weaver, who appeared in a couple episodes of The Twilight Zone. So he worked with Rod Serling previous, but he was one of these. He was also in Fritz Weaver was also in Creepshow. He played the guy with the that was married to Adrienne Barbeau, who kept Hal Holbrook was married to Adrienne Barbeau, and Fritz Weaver played Hal Holbrook's best friend in Creepshow. Remember that? Just call me Billy. He was the one that finds the crate with the monster in it.
Yes, he's the one that's messing around with one of the students.
Yeah. He was that. So he was he's worked with some of the best. He's worked with Stephen King. He's worked with George Romero. He's worked with Rod Serling. So, this guy's a very good actor. Anyway, those are the two. Yeah, those are the two main actors in this episode. It opens up like a gentleman's club, and Fritz Weaver is telling these two other gentlemen about his experience in this haunted house, which he was there for just I believe 1 night or 2 nights, something like that, and he was so scared that his hair went from jet black to all white, and he had to go for treatment and therapy because he was frightened almost to death. So he's telling the story, and Leslie Nielsen he plays a soldier of fortune, a mercenary. He's got the patch on his eye. He's got the the cocky attitude, and he doesn't like cowards, and he kind of laughs at the story, saying there are no ghosts, and he doesn't believe it. So it sets up for Fritz Weaver saying, if I would bet you to stay in that haunted house just one night, and if you stay there, I'll give you $10,000. And the two other members, they said, we'll each chip in $5, so it's $15,000. So Leslie Nielsen says, well, for $15,000, I'll spend the night in hell. And yeah, and Leslie Nielsen, he's kind of like a badass in this episode. You can tell he owns the screen when he's on there. He's got that bravado. Yeah. And in the episode, he's been through all these wars all over the place for different countries. He goes where the action is. He's a guy that's obviously very brave, and he's not going to be scared of some haunted house. So with that, Fritz Weaver and his driver, they take Leslie Nielsen all the way out to this middle of nowhere, and this house looks the part. It looks like something like Bela Lugosi would have came out of. It's creepy. It's all run down. Reminds me of the Munsters a little bit. Yeah. So he goes in the house, and Fritz Weaver drops him off and says good luck, and he takes off, and the bet is that he could stay in the house one night without being scared to death. So he goes in. He's got his bag of all the stuff that he thinks he's going to need for this adventure, and he's checking the place out from top to bottom. It's a long scene, but he's checking everything. He's got the flashlight. He's going all over the place, and you start hearing all the noises, the screams, the stuff that you see on those creature features things. Right. So he's just traveling along in the house, and at one point there's this glowy figure. Ghostly figure. It looks like a former soldier, and he's behind Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen turns around, and he does get startled, and he goes into this basement door. Now he's locked in the house now too. He can't get out of this house. He's locked in. So then he goes into the basement, right, and he's locked in the basement too. And he kind of stumbles down the stairs, and he sees this like a kind of like gooey path that looks like someone dragged themselves, but you don't know what that is yet. So he's looking around, and he goes into the kitchen, and he's drinking coffee, and he's accessing the place, and then he goes doing some more traveling, and he hears like a piano playing. So he goes in to investigate, and there's that ghostly figure again. You don't know what he is yet. And he's playing the organ. So then he turns around, and the hands that were once playing the organ are shooting out flames. It's a pretty good effect. And they're shooting out flames at him, and he's taken back. He jumps back, but then he's a soldier, so he kind of assesses the situation, and he sees that there's a plug, a wire coming from beneath the figure, and he cuts it. And with that, it loses power. It falls to the ground, and the flames come out. And he's getting now cocky now. He thinks he did survive the worst. He thinks that these were all these little tricks to scare him, which was not going to scare him. And he kind of like yells something up to like who's ever watching him, because he is being watched by Fritz Weaver's character, as we'll find out a little bit later on. Yeah. Then he goes up into the bedroom, and he's starting to get tired. And he checks the bed. He finds another wire, and he cuts it. And he thinks he's safe. And he lays in bed. And all of a sudden, these straps come across him, and then a pendulum starts coming down from the bed, and it's going back and forth. From the Vincent Price movie, The Pit and the Pendulum. It's going like this, and it's like inches from his neck, and he yells out, "The bet was to scare me, not to kill me." And with that, the pendulum stops, and then he just he says he's signing off, and he starts to count back from 100, but then you can tell something's not right, because he gets very groggy, and he just passes out, and then he wakes up, and he thinks he did it. He goes downstairs, and he's kind of yelling up at the camera again, and he's got his bag, and he goes up into the kitchen area, and there's fresh brewed coffee, and there's bacon and eggs being cooked for him. And now you see Fritz Weaver's character on this TV set. He's at a camera, so he can see Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen can see him. But now the thing is, Fritz Weaver's hair is no longer white; it's black. So you're like, what's going on here? You thought this guy was scared to death, and Leslie Nielsen's kind of bragging about how he survived the night. You got to do more than that to get me. And then he reassures Leslie Nielsen that the coffee is good and the food is good. It's not drugged or anything. And so as Leslie Nielsen's eating it, he says, but what was drugged that you didn't know about was your coffee that you brought in with you last night in the bag. He says that when you unguard it for a few minutes, we put some drugs in it to make you sleepy later on, which that's why he passed out on the bed. So he thinks that he doesn't really take it seriously. He's still eating in the meal. He's still eating his breakfast. And then Fritz Weaver starts telling him a story about how you're a big, brave man. You fought all these wars. And then he fought in a war where this Fritz Weaver's father was supposed to be a concert pianist, and he's in this war. And Leslie Nielsen's asking him information that he doesn't know because he's not really a soldier. He was just, he was a soldier, but not really a soldier. He was there, try to help the cause. But he was basically a cowardly pianist, as Fritz Weaver says. So he says that you basically burned his hands to a crisp, and he could never play the piano again. And as years went by, he would always tell Fritz Weaver about Leslie Nielsen's character. So then he says that he injected him with a needle, some kind of experimental serum, and he rips off his shirt in a panic now because anybody hears that, they're gonna freak out. And he looks, and there's like a puncture mark where a needle went into his arm. And he starts telling him how it's a new, and this is creepy. If someone told you this, you probably crap yourself. But he says this experimental drug that starts to break the bone and without affecting the nerve, and it turns you into this mass of like you have almost like a giant earthworm where you can't use your arms or legs. You just basically scoot on your stomach and he says. Leslie Nielsen doesn't believe him, of course. He said, that's not true. There's no such thing. He goes, yes, there is. He goes, you've been in the basement. He goes, that's my assistant. We injected him, and that's what he is. And then he starts saying how it took 6 months for people to stop looking for him. And he says, it'll start taking effect in a couple of days. He goes, you can go to the club and collect your money. You can go to a doctor but you won't get any help. There's no cure for you. You're going to turn to this big, brave earthworm. Now Fritz Weaver's kind of taunting him, and he says, "Go in the basement. I command you. Go in the basement." So Leslie Nielsen's getting ready to take off towards the basement, and then he sees a trail of that goo again. Like it was someone slithered, and he knows it, and he's got the gun in his hand now, and he says, "You lose." And they don't show up. This is 1971. You can't show like suicide on TV. But he shoots himself in the head, and he kills himself. And then Fritz Weaver says, "No, you lose. There's nothing in the basement. Like the whole thing was just bullshit." And he got his revenge because he made Leslie Nielsen so scared of what was going to happen to him. He took his life. And now it's like Fritz Weaver, he never pulled the trigger. He never stabbed him with anything. And he have a clean conscience because he made a brave man take his life out of fear. So I love that episode because I'm a big Leslie Nielsen fan. And like I said, people forget that he was a very serious actor. He was the captain in the Forbidden Planet, a lot younger back then with the dark hair. And then he played some bad characters, like in Creepshow. He was him and Ted Danson. He said I can hold. He buried Ted Danson in the water in the sand so he could drown in the water. And he said, "I hope you can hold your breath." And then later on, it gets paid back to him. And Leslie Nielsen goes, "I can hold my breath a long time." So I love Leslie Nielsen, but like I said, he became famous doing the airplane films, and then he did a short-lived show, Police Squad. It's only on for a couple episodes, but it was brilliant. And then people didn't appreciate the show, but then when they did the movies on the big screen, they became huge hits. So, and Leslie Nielsen had a great career of doing comedy, and whether he's doing serious sci-fi or comedy, I love the guy. So I was happy to do this episode with him in it.
Hell yeah. I don't remember which one it was, but he was great with Priscilla Presley too. And you remember the episode when she goes up the ladder and she's going to grab something and he says, "Nice beaver," and she hands it down and she says, "Thanks, I stuffed it myself."
Yeah. Well, it works great for him because he's got that serious face, but it's funny when he makes these certain faces, and he's got that dry voice that you don't expect. He's not going to be a John Candy or anybody like that but he's serious, and that's why it's funny.
Yeah, that's why they said he was going to do these Naked Guns again. It's like, man, you're not going to find anybody to be able to do it like him, man. No way. It's kind of like Robert Stack. That's like trying to get somebody to replace Robert Stack on fucking Unsolved Mysteries. It's just it's just who they are.
Oh yeah, Robert Stack was another one that had that great voice. That great stare.
Yep. You got let's see, and on the next episode is The Devil Is Not Mocked. And these episodes were done. They aired on October 27th, 1971. You got you got Helmut Dantine, who plays General von Grun. You got Francis Lederer as the Count, Hank Brandt as Kranz, and Martin Koslek as Hugo. This basically takes place in World War II, and the director is Gene Kearney. He also wrote the screenplay, and it's based on a short story by Manly Wade Wellman. All right, it starts out with a kid just talking to his grandpa, and he's asking what he did in the war. So it goes to a flashback. You got explosions and shooting and explosions, all this kind of shit like the war, and they take off. They say they're going to go take care of who, where the base is. They're going to that base. So they head there and they end up at a castle, and you got a dude that calls himself the Count, and he's running around. He's down in the basement of this thing. Well, then the Nazis arrive, and they tell the Count to surrender. He's surrounded. And they said they're going to count to 5. Well, the Count comes out. He's very polite. He welcomes in, treats them just like guests. He's really cool. But the Nazis are very rude. To them. They barge right in. And they're not doing shit. Count just leads them through. He said, "Okay, come on." They shout out the door. And there's a woman, and all it is a woman and help. They shoot through the door and bust through, and all it is a woman and the help. You know what I mean? And the servants or whatever setting the table. When the Nazi general comes in and looking all hard, he's looking like he's all looking important and shit. And he says, "You must forgive me for interrupting your supper." And the Count says, "No. This is your supper. We've been expecting you." Well, he threatens to he threatens the Count. You know what I mean? He says that basically they put on a ruse so others can escape, and he says that we will catch them and we'll punish them just like we're going to punish you. And he said there isn't any more. Well, the general makes the girl servant try the food first because he doesn't trust them because he thinks they're going to poison it. Well, the Count laughs and says, "There's nothing wrong with the food. General, we and as a matter of fact, we've got your rooms ready for you for the night." Well, he makes the Count join him for dinner, but the Count refuses to eat. He says he won't eat before midnight. It tells him the German rules make the Count will make you just like your servant. You're going to end up being just like your servants. When we're done with you. He says we will learn the truth. And the Count says, "Perhaps you shall." I thought that was pretty cool, and he says we'll learn the truth, and he goes, "Perhaps you shall." Yeah. He threatens the Count with being shot for suspicious conduct. He's like, "I can just shoot you," you hear wolves howling, and you hear people outside. And he looks outside, and all of a sudden wolves are coming, and that's bothering him. Well, you hear a bunch of shooting outside, and Nazi, he comes bursting through the door, and he ends up falling down, and all of a sudden something grabs him and pulls him back out. Well, the general shoots, but the captain tells him, it's useless unless he has silver bullets. And he says, "You must forgive my servants and our primitive Transylvania customs. If it's any consolation, General, this is the headquarters of the secret resistance, just like you thought it was, and I am its commander, Count Dracula." Comes back to the present, where the grandpa is telling his grandson, all about the story. He finishes up the story. The grandfather looks at his grandson and says, "And that's how your grandfather served his country during the war." So that was a shorter story. Of course, Joey had the longer story. So that's
Yeah, but
um
that's a very good story too, because you get the
yeah
twist at the end, like who were the real monsters, the monsters or the Nazis? So yeah, you figured there the Nazis were the worst of they were the real monsters, and
right.
Count Dracula was doing his bit for his country, and I love the guy that played Count Dracula, the actor. His name is Francis Lederer, and
Mhm.
he was around for a long time. He was in some silent movies. He was in the 1927 classic Pandora's Box, which is
Oh,
yeah, very very good movie.
yeah.
Very iconic now. And then he played Count Dracula for the first time in The Return of Dracula. It's one of those drive-in horror flicks from 1958, and he's
Right.
very good in it. He's a lot younger back then, and he's cold. He's charming at times, but he's cold. You gotta watch him. And then he was a mad scientist in the movie Terror Is Man, where he's making that like a it's kind of like the island of Dr. Moreau.
Mhm.
But he's building this one powerful creature that's half like cat and half man. Um,
Yeah.
and he was really, he's one of these actors that could be in these low budget movies, and he's going to give it a great performance. He had that great voice, great acting quality to him. So everything he was in, he always brought like a touch of class. So if they were doing
Awesome.
those little low budget straight to drive in movie flicks, he would give it his all, and you would see it in his performances.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. These that's one thing I like about these night galleries, man, is that what I mean, you got like you got Leslie Nielsen, we had some we had some people last week, you got Francis Lederer, you got like John Aston's in a couple of them. You even got let me see let me see Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Jr. Is in one of the episodes even. You
Oh,
just got so many people.
they picked like some of these maybe former stars that were big back in the day. They put in some young up and coming actors, and they always put these great TV character actors in there too. They always seem to pick the best people for the parts. I mean, they even have Vincent Price, the Master of Horror, and Bill Bixby are together in an episode down the Sorcerer down the line, and they're good together.
Patty Duke Austin, whichever way you want to put. You know what I mean? You got,
Yeah,
there's just so many of them, man. Um, but this next one, this is episode 14 of season 2. It's the different ones. Tell David, which is the one I'm going to do, and Lagoda's Heads, which stars Patrick McNee and a very young Tim Matheson. So it's like for everyone who's seen Magnum Force or Up the Creek later on when he was doing the comedy type shows, or what I mean, any of those, Buried Alive. But this is really early, this is really early for Tim Matheson. This was 2 or 3 years because Magnum Force was made in '73, so this is 3 years before he played the bad cop in one of the bad cops in Magnum Force, which is my favorite Dirty Harry movie.
yeah. He was Tim Matheson was also the he was a childhood actor, and he did the voices for Hanna-Barbera. He did the voice of Chase in Space Ghost.
Oh, okay, very cool, very cool. Um, the one I have is a little longer one in this one, so we're kind of rotating here. You did the long one, I did the short one, and then um, this time you do the short one, I do the long one, and then we'll kind of go together and discuss Lagoda's Heads. That's cool.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and do the different ones, and then I'll follow you.
Okay, this episode, it's a powerful story too. It's, touches on racism and being prejudiced against. So this is a powerful story, and it's entitled the different ones. And this came out December 29th, 1971, and stars Dana Andrews. Now Dana Andrews was a big star back in the 40s and 50s. A lot of he was in Harm's Way with John Wayne, and he's in a cult classic, Night of the Curse of the Demon from 1958. And he was great in that. And
MVP, man. That's why I call you the MVP, because you know all this shit. You're not just a horror guy. You're all around. You know all that shit. So hell yeah.
This is me with too much time on my hands, too much TV.
Hey man, it's passion,
Yeah, but Dan's very good actor. And his brother was Steve Forrest, who was just in an episode we did, The Waiting Room. He played the main character, the gunfighter, Ditka, and he's also in SWAT. So you got two famous brothers there, Dana Andrews and Steve Forrest, different names, but they changed their names, of course. But they were brothers, and one was a big film star at one point. One was a big TV star. So that was cool. But this comes out December 29th, 1971, and opens up with this young teen, 17-year-old boy. You don't see his face right away because he's covered with a sheet because he's obviously embarrassed or distraught. And you hear these you don't see them, but you hear these little kids out front calling him names, not nice names, and calling him like a freak and everything. And Dana Andrews plays the father, and he comes in, he chases the kids away, and he tries to comfort the son the best he can, but the son's really distraught. He's not happy. He feels like everybody's against him, and he doesn't fit in, and he even tells his son, we need to get you somewhere where you're gonna be able to have fun and live a normal life and be able to go outside and get fresh air and everything. And he says, there's no place like that for me, Dad. And so he makes a phone call. Now this story takes place in the future, and so he makes like a video chat call. How we do today, no big deal. But this is 1971, so they're showing like a video chat. He's calling up this woman to find out if there's any agencies that can help him with the son. He calls it. He says, my son was born with deformed, and yeah, so it's a deformality, big time. So he and the woman says there's nothing they could do really, and so then he goes to this other agency, and she says the same thing. There's nothing they could do, and then she talks about like putting him down, like he was a sick animal. He's like, you can really shoot the charity thing, and he says, I'm not going to kill him. That's my son. And as he's leaving, a voice comes on the loudspeaker, and he turns back and he says they have an exchange program. I forget what they call this planet. I think it's boron. They said they have this exchange program with the planet Boron, and where they bring a person over, and we ship a person over to that planet. And so he tells the son what he's doing, and the son's he doesn't care. He just wants to get out of here, and he's depressed, and you feel bad for the father. He wants to do what's best for his son. He probably wants his son to stay there, of course, but he doesn't want to see his son be ridiculed and treated like really bad, like he's been getting treated. So he takes him to the it's like a launch pad, and he gets on a rocket, and the rocket takes off, and it drops him off on this planet. And when he first enters, he sees this good-looking guy. Like this guy, was probably getting a lot of girls back then. And he says, they shake hands, they introduce him, and he says, I'm leaving. He says, why are you leaving? He says, look at me. He says, he was deformed over there, even though he was a good-looking guy. He was being mistreated and made fun of because he didn't look like others. He wasn't acting like other people. So now he's going to Earth, and this kid is coming to this planet here, and he sees these three girls, and the one girl introduces herself, and then the two other girls go, oh, he's really cute. and
Yeah.
they take him by the hand, by the arm, and they start leading him. And he says, "I think I'm going to be happy here because now he's around people like himself, and he can feel more comfortable. He's
Yeah.
not going to be ridiculed, and for what he is."
Yep. This is a true case of two different things. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, number one, and number two, don't judge a book by its cover. It gives you two lessons in one short story. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good. And Rod, we all know Rod Serling, especially on the Twilight Zone episodes, he did these kind of makes you think episodes, and he could tell a great story. Rod Serling, he was a master.
Hell yeah, it was. Hell yeah. Yeah. Well, the story that followed it up, man, is Tell David. And like you said, December 29th, 1971. And it stars some really good yesteryear stars, man. You know, you got Jared Martin, who plays a double role here, plays Tony Bolt and David Blessington. You got Jenny Sullivan, if anybody remembers her. She plays Pat Blessington, David Blessington's wife. And you got Sandra Dee, which anybody who hasn't seen her, but you have seen Grease, look at me on Sandra Dee. Yeah, that's who she's singing about, is the chick that's in this. And she, you know, she was still this was a little past her actual star prime, but she was still somewhat young, maybe 30-ish here. This is directed by Jeff Corey, a screenplay by Robert Bloch, and it was the short story from Penelope Wallace. Let me see. It starts out, you basically see a brown Brady Bunch car. That's why I call it. It looks just like a Brady Bunch car, except for brown instead of that greenish gray. The woman's driving in a storm. The woman, it happens to be Ann Bolt, played by Sandra Dee. And she runs into a house. Well, she doesn't run into the house with the car, but you know what I mean. She runs into a house. And you know she's it's an odd looking house. So you know what I mean. She looks at it. It's just weird looking compared to what she's used to in 1971. Her radio is freaking out. It goes off. It's got a weird sound going on it. Well, she gets out and goes up to the door, and before she gets a chance to knock, a woman on the intercom, you know, basically says, "Hey, who are you?" Blah blah. Well, come on in. The door opens automatically, you know, and she's looking at this door like, "What the fuck?" But she goes inside and looks around. It looks weird to her, you know. She looks over. There's a weird screen on the wall. You know what I mean? A woman comes down the stairs and she tells her that David's looking for the map instrument. She introduced herself as Pat Blessington, and she said, "Well, I'm Ann." She says, "Do you use the phone?" You know, she says, "Well, yeah." She goes to try. The phone even looks funny. She's got to type in the number here, and it comes up here, and you hear a busy signal, which is about the only thing in this episode that didn't come into fruition later. Because nowadays, it would be, you know, they didn't know there was going to be call waiting. But this basically taking place. She's basically in a house. It's taking place a little bit into the future. And she just doesn't know it. But she asked if she has a cigarette, and she said, "Well, no, we don't smoke, and nobody, you know, that we know really smokes," which is another thing that ended up coming true. But she says, "But we do have these because David likes to, you know, he likes to be a good host." And they're a thing called see what were they called? They're the Pacific brand. And she's like, "Huh, I've never heard of this brand before." And the woman says, "Is there another?" You know, like that's the only thing around. You know what I mean? And she said she's seen her coming up, and she said, "Yeah, that's one way glass, basically where you can see out, but you can't see back in." So there's all this stuff that Ann Sandra Dee's character has never really seen before, and she just blown away. She reads on the side of the cigarettes where there's no tars, no nicotine. And she wondered why she just let her in. She could have been with somebody else that was coming to rob her. So she shows her closed circuit TV where she's seen her get out of the car and come up there. So she knew she was the only one. You know what I mean? So and out of nowhere, a voice, which turns out to be David, says technological stepping stones. And she's like, "Huh?" You know, she's looking at him, and now Ann is looking at this David dude, this Jenny, the first chick, you know, she's just staring at this David. You know what I mean? She stares, you know, glares at him the whole time. She's looking at this shop. Well, he pulled out the thing called an electronic map. His name is David Blessington. and it's basically a GPS. You know what I mean? It's basically what it is, where he shows her how she could get home. Of course, she never seen anything like that before. Um, he finds her at home, and he invites her to come back to visit. His wife doesn't really mess around, do a whole lot, but hey, come back on Monday. And she's like, well, yeah, I think I will. Well, David watches her leave very intensely. He looks at her on the closed circuit, and you can tell that he's real intense about it too. Well, she gets home, walks in, and someone in a mask comes up and starts yelling at her, accusing her of cheating, and say you don't love me anymore, and all this kind of stuff, and screaming. And she's like, yes, I do, yes, I do. No, you don't. You don't love me anymore. All this. And then she said, okay, stop. And the person in the mask stops all her, and she says to the mask, she says, is that do I really sound like that? Like an old hag? And he's like, yep, sometimes beautiful, sometimes you do. And let me see, the phone screwed me up. And says, well, I wouldn't if you would just show me a little more attention, treat me like you used to. Well, Tony, the guy that was in the mask, takes off the mask and he says, I haven't changed, Dan. And says, well, I can remember a time when you couldn't wait to get home. Now all you do is look for an excuse to stay away. Well, Tony, your husband, says, I hardly call working overtime an excuse. And Ann says, and the times you stop for a drink with the boys, Tony said, I'm just trying to unwind. And it says, you can't unwind with your wife? And Tony says, yeah, like I'm doing now. It just shows that, she's overbearing. She's just, you know what I mean? He was doing an imitation of her when he was like, you don't love me anymore. You're leaving me, all this kind of stuff. And that's what she asked him, he was like, how I really sound? He's like, yeah, sometimes you do. Well, things get quiet after he says, yeah, like I'm doing now. And she goes up to Tony. She says, I'm sorry. And she tells him that, she got lost in a storm. And he said, it didn't storm here. So maybe it's one of those, summer clouds or whatever, And then she turns it around and starts accusing him of being on the phone because it was a busy signal, be on the phone with a woman or whatever, and they're bickering back and forth again. And a nanny interrupts and says that their child, getting ready to turn 4, is not wanting to go to sleep. Well, they decide to go up and tell the child good night. Well, Sandra Dee's character goes up first, and then as Tony, her husband, behind her, she goes up, and right before she gets up there, the nanny kind of steps in front of him, and you're really suspicious with that, and she kind of gets out of the way, and they kind of look at each other. Well, Monday comes, and Ann's back over at this Jenny and David's house. And they're listening to music. This music is really, it's weird. It's like electronic cosmic music is what they call it. She never heard that before. And while they're sitting on the stairs, David reaches over and kisses this one woman. I don't remember what her name was, but he kisses her. She was his wife, right there in front of his wife. And Ann's like, whoa, she gets over her face like, oh, that's weird, and like I said, Ann looks surprised, and Ann says her son's going to turn 4 soon. He's going to have a birthday party. David's sitting there, and he talks about his fourth birthday party and how he cut his thumb at the party. And says she sees a lot of trust between David and Jenny, and that's a great thing. They got a good relationship. And she would have been jealous if her husband reached over and kissed some other chick. And David says, well, you gotta watch that green-eyed monster. You know what I mean? He can destroy you, destroy everything. Tells Ann that his mother was a very jealous woman and destroyed her. She killed his dad a few days after his birthday party, and then she killed herself before she could stand trial. He talks about how that happened. His second cousin or whatever from back east raised him when both of his parents were dead, and he tells Ann to be very careful. And Levin says she'd like to have him meet her husband Tony, and David says I would really like to meet him too. And he says he has a photo of his mother, and was told he picked it out. She picked it out for him herself, and he ends up by saying, "My mother was a very beautiful woman." Well, she leaves, and now we get to the birthday party for Ann and Tony's child that's getting ready to turn 4. Well, it turns out he cuts himself. And Anne's looking like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because, she's starting to put shit together. And she asked she asked Tony, why he wasn't there for the birthday party. He said he was with his cousin Jane Blessington, having a drink. And Anne says, what cousin Jane? Is the same, David had mentioned a Jane from the East. Well, all of a sudden she blacks out. Things get fuzzy, and she wakes up. And when she wakes up, she looks up, and it turns out it's Jane Blessington, her husband's cousin. And she tells Jane, take care of David. And she said, well, David will be fine. All this. Well, then Anne tries to tell Tony that the house she was at was projected 20 years into the future. She's seen their son, and and he tried to warn her about her jealousy. And he's like, what are you talking about? So he said, look, I'll prove it. I will call that house and everything, and everything in this, it's still in a phone book. And he looks, and there is no, you know what I mean? There is no David Blessington in there in the book. Well, she feels trapped into what she's, she kind of feels trapped into what she's destined to do. She's saying, hey, just take care of everything. Make sure you take care of my son when you take it. And she's like, well, this Jane, because she's figured it out. And then when he leaves, she picks up the cigarette pack and looks on the cigarette pack and finds the date of June 7th, 1989. So, she said, now I'll prove it. Now I'll tell him. Well, she goes to show Tony so he'll believe her. And she goes around and she hears people talking. She goes into the kitchen and sees her husband, Tony, playing around and kind of making out and kissing the nanny, which is Yvonne or Yvonne or something like that. Well, Aunt, she backs out and they didn't see her, see them. And she goes to her dresser and grabs the gun, and she just kind of fulfills the prophecy. She goes in and shoots him dead. And then it cuts to where she's standing in a jail cell, and that Jane Blessington, the cousin, is in there. She said, well, you just have temporary insanity and all this. She's like, no. She's like, she's resigned to her fate. She just says, you know what I mean? Take care of everything, because basically I'm not going to make it to trial. And it just, the prophecy is fulfilled. Hopefully everybody will be able to follow that. That was a little harder because it bounces back and forth, and it's basically what it's telling you is when she got caught in that storm, she ended up at her son's house 20 years into the future, and he told her what was going to happen, and he tried to warn her so that she wouldn't do it, and she didn't listen. Her jealousy got the best of her, and she fulfilled the prophecy anyway. Killed his dad, killed herself, and and things just ended up just like they did before,
Yeah, her rage was too powerful. Even though she knew what was going to happen, she couldn't help it. But just as the shock of seeing that happen, and she still pulled that trigger.
Yep. Still, he went through all that trying to, trying to warn him, all that just so she could do it just the same, It's a little harder to use when you're bouncing back and forth. So, I try to put it in a way where it can be understood, but it gets a little harder. I try to make detailed notes here and there, but But anyway, here the third story in that you get two short stories and one long one in this one. I just did the long one. Of course, Joey did the shorter one, the different ones. But this is Lagoda's Heads. This is the third one. This is the one that stars Patrick McNee and Tim Matheson. And this is one written by Robert Bloch, I do believe, as well. Basically, it starts out with Patrick McNee and Tim Matheson. They're in Africa, and they go to like this. I don't know. It's like a hut, and you got like witch doctors and shit like that there. And basically, Tim Matheson's looking for his brother because his brother disappeared. If you want to go from there for a minute.
Oh yeah, like you said, it's a good cast. Patrick McNee from the Avengers is in this. Man, he's a great actor, and Tim Matheson, really good actor. Like a lot of stuff, a lot of voice work in the 1960s. Brock Peters plays the Lagoda, and he was in some Star Trek films and a lot of TV work. So he's a very good actor. And then in a smaller part, Zara Cully plays the old woman that's kind of assisting. And anybody who knows classic TV, she played George Jefferson's mother on The Jeffersons.
Right. She was great, man. Mrs. Jefferson.
Yeah,
Oh, holy shit, man. She was fantastic.
yeah, she had the rivalry going with Louise, and they were always going at each other.
Yeah.
And she had she was also in a horror film called Sugar Hill, where she's playing almost the same kind of character as she did in this one. Almost the same kind of character. She was into the voodoo and everything. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like you touched on it. Patrick McNee and Tim Matheson looked for Tim Matheson's brother who has gone missing, and I guess he was there for like only a couple of short days before he was missing, and this one girl comes out of nowhere and she starts saying, "Yeah, your brother's dead." And Lagoda warns her to keep her mouth shut, but she keeps going, and they see those sunken heads, and they did a good job
Yeah.
with making those heads look real with the teeth and everything.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good job, and I'll tell you that show for a TV show the settings were always good. How they did it, the props. So I always
Good, yeah,
appreciated that.
good,
So
good set decorator. Yeah, very good set designers and decorators.
yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, and you put Patrick McNee as a star of this episode, and he's got a great screen presence too. He's got that charisma, and
he's
he's
in the
taking
house.
charge. What's that?
For anybody who's not sure, I'm kind of letting the horror people know. Patrick McNee, we're talking about, played the psychiatrist in The Howl.
Yeah, and he was also in the movie Waxworks. Waxwork. Yeah, he played the guy who was trying to warn them. But yeah, but this was a good episode. It was kind of like a voodoo murder
Yeah,
mystery to find out what happened to this guy. But you find out that he's been killed, murdered, and Lagoda tried to lie. He said he drowned in the water, which was all bullshit. You
right.
can't trust Lagoda. He's a murderer, and he's power hungry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They talk about the heads and what he does with them. He takes them and he hangs them over like a hot oven for real slow. And supposedly that's the way he shrinks them or something maybe. And he starts chanting and the heads start moving. You know what I mean? And he heads tell me your brother no come here. So they go look around more, and that chick Kira comes out, and she begs to go with him, and they said, well, she can go if she wants, and he's like, no, you know what I mean? He's pissed. He's like, no, she can't go. And she goes anyway. And then they're in their room and they're talking to that Kiro chick, and and she hears Lagoda's drums, and she has them promise her to put a guard outside the room, and they say, well, okay. Well, the guard's there, and you see the guard there, and she comes out the next day, and news come that Lagoda is dead. He's been murdered. Well, they go check on him, and they say he's been torn apart. The girl says that Lagoda's magic, shrunk the heads and all that shit. And she says, but my magic killed Lagoda. She said her magic is stronger because even though he knows how to shrink them, she knows how to make Lagoda's heads kill. So she killed Lagoda. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like at the end where they had the blood on the teeth too. Like they must have been chewing him and tearing him apart. And and Patrick McNee says he goes in and he comes out like shocked, like almost sick to his stomach. And then Tim Matheson's going to go in. He says, "No, don't go in there. This is it's like a horrible sight." And I would have loved to have seen what those little heads did to him, though. But you can use your imagination for that.
It kind of puts me in mind of the little the Zuni warrior. You know what I mean, from Terrania or
Trilogy of Terror.
Here, did you ever see that of mine?
Oh yeah, I saw. I love that movie. I want to get that. I want to get the doll there. Yeah, I see that. I see people posting it when they buy it, and oh god, I would love to have that.
It's badass, dude. Here's his spear. That's a great one.
That's badass.
Yeah, he was expensive, so he better be, man. You can't get the next one that I want to get is the Talkie Tina or whatever.
Oh, from the Twilight Zone with Telly Savalas.
Yes. Hang on a second. Let me put him up here, and I'll be. But yeah. Yep. Yeah. That it's one of my favorite possessions, man. Because I grew up with that. It scared my older brother so bad that at 18 years old, he still wouldn't watch it. I remember said I was like 8 years old. I sat there watching it, and he had seen it years before, right? Like when I was just a baby, he had seen it, early 70s, like 73 or so, because I was born in 73 and he was born in 63. Well, he had already seen it, so he was about 10 when he seen it, and when it came out, I think it's 73. And he he went and watched it again, even at 18 years old. He laid in his room while me and my mom watched it. It fucked him up.
Yeah, some of those voodoo movies, and I've seen a lot of them. I've seen the Four Skulls of Jonathan Drake. It's a low budget, small movie, but very good. And Voodoo Island with Boris Karloff. That's a really good one. I was creepy. But the movie
Yeah.
that really screwed me up was when I saw it was The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because they're saying it's based on a true story.
it's that big thing live, man. Oh my god, dude, that scares the shit out of me. That
Yeah,
that that's my worst nightmare, man.
yeah. Anything with voodoo, like it's like the was it Doctor Terror's House of Horrors with Peter Cushing and Donald Sutherland,
Yeah.
Christopher Lee. There's
Yep.
a story where the guy takes ancient voodoo secret music, and he turns it into a jazzy beat. And they
Yeah.
told him that you can't use this song. They warned him. They said you can't use that for profit. It's out. The public is out to not to know our music. And he did it anyway. And he ends up paying the price later on in the episode. But check out that movie. Anybody's that interested? It's called Doctor Terror's House of Horrors. It's an Amicus production with Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and a very young Donald Sutherland.
Hell yeah. Yeah. That one and Clute is both have got good young Sutherland in it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so for next Thursday, I'm looking here. I can actually look at the episode. Um, there's a lot of really good ones here. The Green Fingers episode has the funeral and the Tune and Dance Cafe, and then you've got episode 22 from season 2, which is the Caterpillar and Little Girl Lost. Just naming a couple of them here. You've got Boy Who Predicted Earthquakes, Miss Lovecraft Sent Me, and The Hand of Bogus Weems, and Fam of What Opera. That's got a couple of really short ones on it. Episode 4 is The Fear of Spiders, Junior, Marmalade Wine, and The Academy. And of course, you got season 1. Just kind of naming off some, see if any of them sound good to you. The Train Down Riley's Bar, The Last Laurel. Now, one that I would like to do is Make Me Laugh. That's on with Clean Kills and Other Trophies. And maybe, I'm not sure Pamela's voice is on that one or not.
Yeah, those are good ones. So if you do those, let me see. I want to do the Phantom Farmhouse.
Okay.
Okay. That's season 2, episode 5.
Okay, and that's on with Silent Snow, Secret Snow. Okay. Do you want to split those, or do you just want to do like a whole episode and me do a whole episode?
Well,
Like,
like I said, there's this. I'll do the Phantom Farmhouse, of course, and then you
okay,
could do the Silent Snow, Secret Snow. That's a
okay,
good one too. And then you pick which one you wanted to do. I know you wanted to do the one with
make me laugh.
the Make Me Laugh, Clean Kills, and Other Trophies. So if you want to do Make Me Laugh, I'll do Clean Kills.
Okay, sounds good to me, man. Okay, so I got Make Me Laugh and Silent Snow, and you've got Clean Kills and Phantom Farmhouse. Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good, man. All right,
back in
man. All right.
business next week.
Um, uh, Thursday night, just like we have been doing it, like Thursday around 9.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Cool. What else you got? You got going anything going on? Anybody's channel you going on between now and then, or?
I don't get anything going on. Like I said, I go on Martin and Jen's Sunday night show when they do that. Sometimes it's once a month, sometimes it's twice a month on a Sunday. And then, like I said, I was on Jennifer's channel. We were doing, before her channel got ruined, we were doing
Right.
Mafia Wednesdays. We were doing episodes of The Sopranos and then a Mafia movie the next week. And that was fun. So hopefully we can get back into that. We was also going to tackle Sons of Anarchy later on too with Ron
Cool.
Perlman and Charlie Hunnam. And that's my favorite show. So we're supposed to tackle that. So other than that, I hang out with you whenever you do your show.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going over with Cal. It's supposed to be Sunday night. It was supposed to have Raw in it too, but I guess he canceled. I don't know if he did that after he heard I was going to be there or what. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Other than that, I'm working on I'm still working on that documentary. I'm also working on, since it's October, I'm doing scenes from Halloween, where I'm going to discuss from a character's point of view what they're thinking and what's going on. So everybody be sure to catch that, man, because I think that's going to be really cool, really interesting. I'll let you inside my mind of what I think is happening. Anyone who has never seen me do a watch along or commentary on the original 1978 Halloween, definitely check this out. Check out. I'm doing the Ghost Bob scene. I'm doing the scene where Machol is stalking Annie when she's supposed to butter on her. I'm doing a few of those scenes, so it should be interesting. So everybody check it out if you get a chance. Definitely come back and check us out next Thursday night at 9 for another night gallery. I also wouldn't mind delving into a little bit of Tales from the Dark Side too, if you like that.
Oh, that's my absolute favorite horror show. I loved it. Just the whole intro, the way it comes on,
Yes, yes.
and the very first episode is Trick or Treat, and that sets the tone of the series.
Right.
I love that. I watch that episode every Halloween religiously. Halloween, that's always on my TV set. So, whenever you want to tackle Tales from the Dark Side or the other show they did, Monsters, let me know. I'm always there.
Cool. Yeah. I figure maybe once or twice a month we'll maybe switch off. We'll like take turns, do like a night gallery, and then Tales from the Dark Side, and then a night gallery too. You know what I mean? Figure
Oh yeah,
maybe do that. Hell yeah.
that
All right,
sounds
man.
fun.
Cool. Hell yeah. I'll be in touch. Like I said, we talk all the time. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody joined us and checked it out, and thanks everybody that checks it out and rewatch. We had good rewatch on the last episode. It's like 140 views now, I think, or something. So yeah, everybody have a good time. Much love to you. Thanks a lot for checking us out and support. That is the MVP, Joey Machol. I am Gorflo, and you are not. Everybody have a great evening. Take it easy, Joey.
Good night, everybody. See you later. See you later, Gore.
Later.